you do that? How did you do that?
Welcome back everyone to another ESO build video. Today I'm going to be giving you the update to the Vampire build. This is a PvP Sorcerer. I know a lot of people use Vampire and assume that that's just part of their passives and all the rest of it, so it's quite nice to have, but this is specifically built to be a Vampire, utilizing sets and skills and all the rest of it to be as useful as possible towards that skill line. Now, I know a lot of people out there are using different setups, and there's obviously very common setups that people like to use, but this is not one of those. This is a little bit different, shall we say. Now, if you've already been using this build before, you probably know what to expect. This was released originally around Morrowind and didn't have any updates since because it didn't really need any. However, obviously CPs have changed quite drastically since then. We've had quite a few more added, and of course the AoE caps have been removed in PvP, so this is really, really good. I mean, it was strong anyway, but now it's even stronger. So let's first of all take a look at the stats. Put some food on, pop a potion, buff up. So we're sitting on 38.5k Magicka, 26.5k health, so we're quite tanky. 1400, almost 1500 Magicka recovery, 35.8% crit with 2.7k spell damage. That actually goes a little bit higher because we do have a weapon glyph on. 20k across the board resists, and almost 3k critical resist as well. All points into Magicka, although you don't have to. If you want to dip a little bit of magic, you can put some more into health if you want. Also into stamina. Stamina's 11k, by the way, as well. I did forget to mention that part. We're also, of course, a stage 4 vampire. That's very, very important. There's no point in being any other stage vampire because we're using vampire skills, which means we'll be this all the time. Max health and max magic food rather than recovery food, although if you want to use witch mothers or something like that because you're struggling, then that's entirely up to you, but just bear in mind you will lose health and magicka, so you'll go down to about 25, 24, something like that as far as your health is concerned, and your magicka will go down to about 36, 37. So first of all, we're going to look at the skills. Now I'm going to go over these in detail. They are going to make a lot more sense once I get to all the gear and all the rest of it, but let's go over it in one thing at a time, and I'll go over the passives and everything as well for those of you that don't know, and of course for those of you that do, that weren't aware of certain things. First of all, Inner Light, very, very simple. This is the Mage's Guild skill line. If we go down to this first of all, first ability you unlock, I think you get Mage's Guild 2, you can get this, and morph it into Inner Light. And this will give you a couple of different perks. First of all, it will give you 5% increased max magicka for being on your bar. So we have more magicka, so we do more damage, which is nice. Also, it gives us a crit rating. We do want to crit, because if we do crit, we heal, but I'll get to that in the skills anyway. And above all, this can actually decloak people. What I mean by that is anyone invisible, anyone sneaking, anything like that. If you do pop this and you're nearby, anyone that that finds will decloak them. So it finds invisible targets. Now, don't spam this all the time, of course, because it is bloody expensive, but you can decloak people if you're looking for someone you think you know where they are. Or failing that, it's a passive for being on your bar. It's really, really strong. Okay, Elusive Mist. This is actually Mist form, and it's morphed to Elusive Mist, and it's in the Vampire skill line. Surprise, surprise. What you need to do is morph it to Elusive Mist, and this will give you 75% reduction to damage while this is active, and Major Expedition, so you run faster, and it lasts for 4 seconds. Now, while you're in this form, you're immune to disabling effects, you're immune to immobilize, you're immune to stuns and knockdowns and all that kind of stuff, but you cannot be healed, and your magicka recovery is stopped. So it makes you very, very tanky. It's really good for escaping, but remember, you can't be healed, and your magicka recovery is 0 when it's on. Very, very strong indeed, and one of the main base reasons for being a vampire in most situations anyway, especially in PvP, because you take so much less damage. So, oh shit button right there. Next skill is Hardened Ward, which is in our Daedric Summoning skill line, just here. It's a 4th ability you unlock on the skill line, so while you're leveling, you will want to put some of these on your bar to help contribute towards this skill line so you can unlock it. But once you have it unlocked, morph it to Hardened Ward. Now this is a damage shield, and it is bloody huge. Obviously it's larger in PvE, but in PvP it's still really, really strong anyway. Now this will give you 9.2k damage shield, so 10k you can take flat without penetrating and all those types of bonuses to consider. This will take a flat 0 resist 9.2k damage. Now of course don't spam it because you're going to struggle, but one important thing to note, or two actually: one, you can put on a shield and go Mist form, so take the shield off first before they even get to you. Secondly, while you have a shield up, you cannot be hit with a critical strike from anything. So if the shield runs out or it gets taken off, of course, now you're susceptible to crits. But while the shield is on, you cannot take any. They'll hit the shield first and you second. Really, really strong. Now, Invigorating Drain. Now, we're going to go to the house for this one so I can show you exactly what it does because it's broken as hell. But I need a target to demonstrate it. So we'll go to my house. Okay, I need the skeleton, of course. Invigorating Drain. Basically what this does is it does damage every 1 second. And for every tick that it does, you receive 21% of your missing health. Now this can actually benefit from healing received and vitality and mending and all those types of bonuses if you've got them in your group or whatever. But it's based on missing health. So the more health you've got missing, the bigger the heal. Also, every single second that this ticks, you gain 5 ultimate. Now it will make a lot more sense as we go, but this is heavily built on taking full advantage of the vampire skills, including this one, in order to build ultimate fast to utilize your main vampire ultimate, which we're going to get to, but this is very, very strong. Basically, it's very, very simple. You just do this, and that will stun the target. They can break it, but that will stun them. 3 seconds worth of damage, really, really strong, heals you every second, and builds your ultimate like hell. If you look at my ultimate at the moment, a light attack, for example, will give you 3 ultimate a second for 8 seconds. This will give you 5 ultimate every 1 second. So if I light attack and then hit it, look at my ultimate. Regeneration is insane. It's going up really, really fast. Him again, 300, 320, 330, filth. You get the idea. And the ultimate's coming. You'll see why this is very, very, very important. Okay, Mage's Wrath. This is in... Oh, first of all, I didn't tell you where that was, did I? Vampire, first ability you unlock, which is here. Morph it to Invigorating Drain. Mage's Wrath, this is your first ability you unlock as a sorcerer on this particular skill line, and this is your execute. Now what that means is the lower the health, obviously, the more damage it does. In this instance, when the target's below 20% specifically, it does more damage. It does an additional burst of damage when it hits them. Now there is a trick to this. As you can see, it's within 4 seconds. So if they're below 20% health, it will fire off instantly. However, what this does is attaches to the target. So I'll put it on him. You see the timer? Now, if that doesn't reach 0, and I hit him and put him down to 20% health, that will pop. So if he's already at 20%, that will explode instantly and do additional damage. If he's not at 20 and then you burn him down before it blows up, then it'll explode. So what you do is you put it on them early, give them a quick slap and Invigorating Drain, and if you bring their health down to 20, pop, they're dead. Very, very simple. Now, be sure to morph it into Mage's Wrath. Now, you can morph it into Endless Fury if you want, but that will give you Magicka back for each target that you kill, but who's to say that you're necessarily going to kill it? I prefer this one because of the additional damage. The ultimate, now this is broken. 94 ultimate. This is very, very important. The reason this is 94 is going to become much, much clearer once I get to the passives and, of course, the gear, because this is also very important. But this is 94 ultimate. It allows you to summon basically a swarm of bats, and every single target hit will take damage and heal you. Now, all the enemies can be hit once a second for 5 seconds. So you got 5 ticks of this, and this is area of effect. 10 meters, in fact. It's massive. Now, this is in the vampire skill line, of course, is the ultimate that we have, and we've morphed it to this specifically because of the heal. And this is what it does. Anyone caught inside those bats, you see the damage every 1 second? That will heal you for the damage as well. Not only that, if you do crit and you have another skill on, it'll heal additional to that. It's really, really nuts. And of course, the more targets you have, the bigger the heals and the less likely you are to die. In fact, if you jump into 1 or 2 people fight, then you're going to heal quite well off of it. If you jump into about 10 people and pop this, you pretty much can't die for its duration. It's absolutely incredible, and the damage is insane, especially in PvP, because the AoE caps have been removed. Now before, if we fire this off and there's 6 guards and 1 player, there is a chance that he won't get hit, which is annoying. However, since the caps have been removed, all the guards will get hit, and so will he. Really, really, really powerful, and I'll demonstrate that in a bit. Back bar. This is a resto staff. Oh, note that we're using 2 swords in the front, but I'll get to that in the gear anyway. Back bar. Yes, we're using a resto staff purely for this and the Magicka return, but we'll get to that in a moment. First of all, we're using Streak. Now, this is in Stormcalling. This is your get out of jail free button. This is your quick run away, I'm in shit button, or you can use it as a stun as well. Now, what this does, obviously, you cover some ground there. Quite a lot of ground, in fact. So you get out of trouble. Also, if you notice on the skeleton, I don't know if you can do it on this guy because he has the same rules as a boss now. But anyway, when you go through them, you will stun them. So very, very handy for that as well. So it's a good CC and a good escape at the same time. But what you do need to do is be very, very careful how you use it, because if you use it within 4 seconds of itself, it will be more expensive. So it'll be 50% more Magicka to use the second time. So if you use it once, then check the skills, you can see now that it costs 5.4k Magicka instead of 3.5. So you have to be very, very careful. But it's your safety button. Really, really useful. Now, this is in Stormcalling. This is right at the bottom, so it does take a long time to unlock. But once you've got these, a couple of these on your bar, and you're leveling up and everything, you'll eventually get this and then morph it into Streak. There is another morph you can use which absorbs projectiles, but honestly, I prefer this particular morph. Next up is Healing Ward in the Resto Staff skill line. It's the 4th ability down in the skill line, so it does take some time to unlock it. You need to put a couple of these on your bar to start with, maybe rapid regen for a little while, and then you'll eventually unlock this. Morph it to Healing Ward. Now what this will do is this will put a shield on you or somebody else, and depending on how low your health is, depends on how big the heal you receive from it is. So if you put this on with full health, of course you can see that it will put a damage shield on me, just like Hardened Ward does. Yes, they stack. But when it runs out, you'll get a heal. So if someone takes it off you, or if it just runs out by itself, you will heal from it. Now just note, as you can see here, the lower the target's health, the larger the damage shield, and also the lower the target's health, the bigger the heal. So very, very important to know that. Off the bat, it's not that strong, but once you start taking damage, it is. Boundless Storms, this is in Stormcalling as well. This is several different things. First of all, it does damage once a second to nearby targets for 23 seconds. And it's shock damage as well, which is very important towards our passives. You can actually end up executing people with this by accident, which is quite fun. Also, it gives you a resist buff for physical resistance and spell resistance of 5280, which is Major Resolve and Major Ward, by the way. They're specific buffs. If you've got another buff running with that, maybe from a Warden or even from a potion, then of course they don't stack. So this is important to buff yourself. Also, it gives you Major Expedition, making you run faster. So, in a nutshell, basically you pop this, you run fast for 7.5 seconds, you have a resist buff for 23 seconds, and anything near you will take this. Damage every second. Area of effect as well, so they just have to be close to you. Now, when I get to the passives, you'll see why that's even stronger than that, but it's very, very useful indeed. Now, Boundless Storms is actually the second ability you unlock, so it's quite early on in the game. Make sure you morph it to Boundless, not to Hurricane, because Hurricane is more for stamina users, not for Magicka. The next ability is actually in the same skill line, Power Surge. This is our heal and our damage buff at the same time. And what this does is it will give us Major Sorcery, increasing our spell damage by 20%. Brutality is on there as well, but that's not that important. But for 33 seconds, we have increased spell damage, so we don't need to use a pot or anything for that. Also, if you crit, and you will, you heal for 2.6k, and this can happen once a second. This also happens with your bats. It also happens with your Boundless. Anything that you crit with can heal from that ability. Executes, light attacks, heavy attacks, anything that you crit with will have a chance to heal you. Very, very important. You're really, really tanky with these skills all mounted up together. So you've got shields, you've got a heal shield, you've got a resist buff, you've got crits from your damage for even standing next to people. You can see where this is going. And of course your bats and invigorate and drain. It's quite hard to kill you. Now, the last one before the ultimate is Proximity Detonation. Now, you do need a few skills into PvP to be able to unlock this. It takes a little bit of time, but this comes from the Assault skill line, and it's the last one you unlock. You need Assault 8 to get this, I believe, and this basically is your bomb button. Now, when you apply it, you can see a counter or a timer next to my food, and it's counting down. If you reapply it, it'll start the time again, so you don't have to let it explode. Just kind of plan it. But if you let it explode, every single target next to the burst will increase the damage. See, bam, that blows up. Now, as you can see in the skills itself, I'll explain this in a moment. Now, each target within that radius, 8 meters by the way, each target inside the radius will increase the damage by 25%, up to 250% increased damage is as far as this goes. So if you're in the middle of 10 people, you're going to get a massive, massive explosion. It's really, really powerful. Very tactical. Time it. Get stuck in. Really, really strong. And if you time this with your ultimate, you can see where I'm going with it. Anyway, next one is the ultimate. on the back bar. This is Shooting Star. This is very, very specific for a good reason. Now, this is in the Mage's Guild. You do need Mage's Guild 10 for this. If you don't have it, don't panic. You can just go with bats or something if you want. But I'm going to show you how to utilize this. It's level 10 in Mage's Guild. Morph it to Shooting Star specifically. I know Ice Comet does a little bit more damage, but we're not using it necessarily for the tiny bit of damage increase you would get from it. We're using it for the ulti gain and the damage combined. What I mean by that is this will launch a meteor out of the sky. It will hit the target, and it does a dot area effect on the ground, which is not massive. It's about 5 meters, so it's not too bad. But above all, every target you hit will give you 11 ultimate back. Why is that important? Because our bats only cost us 9. Let's put a vamp skill on first. I'll get to that in a bit. Our bats only cost us 94. 94 ultimate. So if we hit 10 targets, if we're lucky, in a big cluster, we can fire our bats off instantly. Let's get some ulti so you can see what this looks like if you're not familiar with it already. Ulti gain is disgusting. Look at that. So bloody fast. Was it 148? We've got it already, I think. This is what happens. Now you see, I'll wait for the ulti to run out, but I'll gain some for hitting him. In fact, let's bring him over as well. Come here. Up you go. Each target hit will give me 11 ultimate. No ulti. 23. Straight away. That's a quarter of my bats. If you mix that with a light attack and invigorate and drain, that's just 2 targets. Now if they were multiple targets, like more there was maybe like 2 or 3 more people, I'm going to be able to use my bats almost instantly, especially if I mix it with some of the gear and some of the other shinies that haven't been explained yet. Now I'll give you an example in a moment on some zombies. In fact, I did this in the last video. I'll do it in this one as well, so you can really see how effective it can be. Obviously not every situation is exactly the same, but this is just a guide to show you what can happen. But hopefully you can see where I'm going with that one. Very, very strong. It does a decent amount of damage when it hits. It can almost one-shot some people, especially if they're squishy. If they're tank, not so much, but if they're squishies, maybe. But above all, you really want to make sure that you only use that in situations where you know you're going to get ultimate back instantly, so you can smack them with that and then go straight in with the bats. It's very, very, very powerful. Again, if you don't have Mage's Guild 10, I would recommend you get it, but you can just go bats on both bars and you'll be fine. Now, passives. This is going to underline a majority of where the build is going, although the rest is in the gear, so stay with me. There's a lot to get through. First of all, we'll go through the class passives. Now, we're not using any of this stuff at all, although if you don't have Ice Comet, you can use the Negate Bubble. That's quite nasty. But I prefer the bats. It's a lot cheaper. Just run in and use it. That's the whole point of the vampire build in the first place. But we're not using none of these at all. So I'm only using this. This reduces the Magicka and stamina cost of my abilities. Perfect. Do I use a dark magic ability to gain heals? Nope. Do I use a dark magic ability to get the duration increase? No. And do I need to get the extra crit from using an ability that I'm not using? No. Don't need any of them. Pick this. You're done. Daedric Summoning. I'm not using a pet, so I don't need this skill here. Or that one. So I'll take the reduced ultimate cost. Now this is why it's very, very important. Sorcerers have a 15% reduction to ultimate cost. Vampire is not 94 ultimate straight off the bat. Bats. But 15% reduces it so far. This increases your stam recovery and your health recovery while a Daedric summoning skill ability is slotted. We do have a shield. This counts from this skill line, so we do benefit from the stam recovery and the health recovery. Our health recovery is low because we're a vampire, but our stam recovery is needed. We are going to want to break and CC and CC break and dodge roll and all that kind of stuff. So this does benefit us, so we will need that. Storm Corner, get every single one without fail. Increases mag recovery. Awesome, we need that. Increases your physical and shock damage by 5%. Very, very important. We will be heavy attacking with the swords occasionally to get sustain back, although people won't see that coming. And of course, we do shock damage with our Boundless Storm and our Streak, so that's very important also, so we do want the increased damage for that. Not to mention, of course, our Execute is also shock damage, so this will increase that as well. Implosion, this is very, very important. This is where I was getting to, the Execute passive. Any physical or shock damage that you do has a 6% chance to go boom, basically. 15% health and below can proc this, and it says physical and spell. So for example, if he's at 15% health, Boundless is lightning damage, so my shock damage can make him take a nasty, nasty pop from that passive. Also, If I heavy attack him or light attack him, that's physical. So that can do it as well. They do both work at the same time. So you could hit him with that while your boundless is running, and he could get 2 executes at once, and you have an actual execute as well, which also can proc it. So you can see where I'm going with this. Low health targets are stuffed. It's really, really strong. Chance base, of course, but it's very, very strong. I stood next to someone in PvP once before with a boundless storm running, and I hit them for 9k, and they died. 9k in PvP at low health is disgusting. This is very, very strong indeed. So shock or physical damage on a low health target, even if you've got no Magicka left and you just chase them with light attacks, you can kill them. Increases your weapon and spell damage by 2% for each sorcerer ability slotted. We do have 4% because we have 1 here and 1 here. These 2 are sorcerer abilities, so we do benefit from increased spell damage, which is very, very nice indeed. We're not using any of these. We are using dual wield. Now, we're not using it for the skills, we're using it for the ability to slot certain sets, so we have more slots. Also, so we can proc a couple of different glyphs at once, and of course, so we can benefit from increased spell damage to our abilities, and there are some other shinies as well. Abilities damaged by 20% against enemies under 25% health. Now, I know we're not using any, but technically we are. This and this count as dual wield abilities. So if the target is low, you can't quite catch them with any abilities or any skills or anything, you haven't got any Magicka left, I don't know what you've done, but you've run out of juice and you just finish them with a heavy. You can, and it will do more damage. It will count. Small percentages are what make the difference in this game. Increases the damage by 6% of your offhand weapon. Of course, if we are going to use these occasionally, whether it be ulti gain to proc the glyphs or to just finish someone off because we're not quite there yet, that will benefit as well. So these aren't essential, but they will count. Ruffian as well gives you a 15% damage bonus when attacking stunned or immobilized enemies. So if they are stunned or immobilized with this, and you're low on stamina, you know they're going to CC you. I don't know, it's a Dragon Knight with Fossilized. As soon as he gets up, he's going to try and stun you, and you haven't got enough stamina to break that attack when he does it. Just make sure that while he's stunned, give him one of these. You'll get stamina back because you heavy attacked, and then you can break instantly. Tactical play, I know, but it will count, so these are useful. But don't forget, while you're doing that heavy attack, you will do more damage to him. Grants a bonus based on the weapon types. Now, this is the main reason we're using swords, because for each sword, our weapon, our base damage, our weapons give us 2.5% increased damage. So for 2 swords, we have 5%. Very, very nice. Now, obviously they're passives. You don't actually need any of these skills, just the passives. This one isn't so important. Reduces the cost of dual wield abilities. We don't actually cast any. We're just using lights and heavies if and when we need to. Not as your main source of damage, but just when you need to. So this is irrelevant. Resto stuff. You can unlock this all the way to max if you want the full benefits, of course. But the main bonuses I want from these, in fact, is this. If you fire off a heavy attack, the last tick of it will heal you or a nearby ally based on 31% of the damage done. And of course, you will get major mending. So if you do a heavy attack first, for the next 3 seconds, all of your heal abilities, anything that you heal with, is going to be increased by 25%. It's really, really strong. This one here increases your healing by 15% on allies under 30% health, including yourself, by the way. So if you're really, really low health, you're on the resto bar, you fire off a healing ward, that will be stronger if your health still stays low. Plus, remember, this skill is stronger the lower your health. So they stack against each other really, really well. And of course, if you can fire off a heavy attack just before that pops, you get the extra 25% as well. So tactical play again, stack those bonuses. Don't panic if you're low health, just kind of take advantage of it. Circle of Life, this one restores an additional 30% Magicka when you complete a heavy attack. That is friggin' nuts. So, obviously you haven't seen the gear yet, but we're using heavy armor. Now that's very, very important. Obviously we don't have certain bonuses to our damage and all that kind of stuff and recovery, but we do get so much back from this resto stuff, and you will see in the passives in a minute why it's important to be heavy armor as well. Now, this one restores Magicka when you block a spell. That's handy if you can max it out. Also, this one increases your healing with the rest of stuff spells by 3%. This will actually go up more than that. If you want to utilize it, feel free to do so. That means that your healing ward will be stronger, and so will your heavy attacks on your resto. But at the moment, I'm actually very, very comfortable with what I've got. I'll get these up eventually, so they're maxed, but the most important ones are these 3 right here. This one, again, small percentages do count, so I would highly recommend going for it, but It's not required. These are the most important ones. Major Mending, the additional bonus to healing for under 30% health, and of course the return from Magicka. That's the most important one, is because we don't have loads and loads and loads of sustain. It's not bad, but we don't have loads, so you want to make sure that you go bam, there's your heavy, magic back, get back in again. Very, very strong indeed. Now, we are using some light armor. In fact, we're using one piece of light armor. So we'll take these 3 bonuses. These ones are not relevant. They do increase your spell crit, they do increase spell penetration, but these only work if you have 5 pieces. These are small bonuses based on how many pieces we actually have, but it will still benefit us. So 4% recovery, 2% reduction to cost, and of course some spell resistance. So take these first of all. Medium armor, we're using 1 piece of medium, so we obviously don't want the one that we require 5 pieces for. So this one's irrelevant, don't use it. But the rest of them, they do give you minor bonuses based on how many pieces you have. So we have increased weapon crit, which is so-so. Do we need it? Not necessarily. Will it benefit us? Yes. So if we do hit with a light or a heavy with our swords, for example, we're trying to get some stamina back so we can CC break more often. If you do hit them with a crit, I mean, this has an improved chance to do so. And of course, don't forget you can execute off of that as well. So this will benefit you a little bit. Increases stam recovery for each piece worn. We actually have 1 piece worn, so we will get a 4% initial recovery bonus for that, which is important because we do need to dodge roll and break and that kind of stuff, and also reduces the stamina cost of your abilities by 2%. Doesn't really matter about that because I'm not using any stamina abilities anyway, but the recovery is really nice. Also, reduces the cost of sneak. We are going to be sneaking. We are a vampire. We do sneak at full speed, which I'm going to get to. So this will help, and also a detection radius is reduced as well. And finally, increases your movement speed while sprinting. We don't sprint too much, but it will help. And we do dodge roll, so we like the reduction to cost as well. So these are very, very beneficial, in fact, for your CC type sustain. Very, very important. Above all, we are using heavy armor. This one gives us bonuses to resists based on how many pieces we're wearing. We're wearing 5, so we get 1811 for that. Constitution increases health recovery per piece worn, which is not that important, but the bonus to the bottom of it, of this description, is, which will give us 108 magicka and stamina once every 4 seconds for each piece of heavy armor worn when we take damage, which ends up being 541. So being hit once every 4 seconds will give you 541 of each resource back. That's the difference between life and death sometimes. Very, very helpful. Juggernaut, we are using 5 pieces, so for each piece worn, we have an additional 2% max health. So our health is increased by 10%. You will need this. This is essential as well. Remember I said heavy armor is important for your heavy attacks? Now, if we heavy attack, we are granted an additional 25% to our stamina or magicka when it's finished. So, if we go back to resto staff, you'll see here that we get back 30% more magicka on a resto staff than a magic dealing staff or damage dealing staff because of what it is. Then on heavy, we get an extra 25%. Then we get more in our CPs, which I'll get to in a bit. You can see where I'm going with this. If I just nuke my magic real quick. Whoops, wrong button. Get rid of it. If you block misform, by the way, it'll turn it off. Or if you swap bars, it'll turn it off. Let's just get rid of it all. Takes quite a while to get rid of it, actually. Now, heavy attack. Watch my bar. That's quite a lot. We're talking like a 6 or 7k return per hit. Now, if you mix that with a potion, which we'll do in a second, we'll put the potion on as soon as I finish the heavy. 3, 2, 1, pop. That's a shit ton. And that heavy gave you major mending as well. So you heavy, stick a poison on them, throw a meteor down, get stuck in, throw some bats. You see where I'm going with this. Your sustain's actually really, really good if you control it properly. Now, the final one in here, of course, is healing received. We get an 8% healing received bonus for having 5 pieces of heavy armor. This, by the way, the heavy attacks bonus is only for wearing 5 pieces. You will not get this if you're wearing 1, 2, 3, or 4. This is 5 pieces or more. So this is why these are very, very important to us. Bigger heals, more return on our heavies. Very, very nice indeed. And of course, don't forget, if you are using stamina, let's dodge roll a bit, waste it. Look at the return. Huge. That's a break or a dodge roll right there. We're in trouble. Boom, look at that. 2 heavies, we're full. Almost. Use your skills wisely. Now, you will want this in PvP. If you get your pickpocketing on and go stealing stuff and everything like that, you can get this skill line up quite quickly, especially if you're selling stolen goods, but you want to get this improved hiding. It reduces the cost of sneaking. So, I don't have a massive amount of stamina, so you have to be careful, but while you're sneaking, obviously it costs, and the more points you have into that, the cheaper it is. Vampire, of course, this is essential. Increases our recovery. Max Magicka and max stam recovery is increased by 10% for being a stage 2 or above. We're going to be stage 4 all the time, so we're always going to get this bonus. Very, very useful. And of course, Undeaf. Reduces the damage taken by up to 33% based on your missing health while you are below 50%. Remember, some of the passives that we're using, especially the Resto Staff heals, and especially the heal from the Invigorate and Drain as well, they're more effective the lower the health we have. And of course, because we are a vampire using this passive, the lower health we have, the stronger we are. It's ridiculous. So they all balance off each other very, very nicely indeed. This reduces the severity of your health recovery debuff, if you like, for being a vampire. It's not essential. You really don't need health recovery, but for this particular build, but this will help a little bit if you want to go and buy it, if you have the spare skill points. This one, of course, is important as hell for PvP. When it's dark, you hide faster, so you can get out of trouble quick. And above all, you ignore all movement speed penalties while crouching. Now, normally, when you are crouched or stealthed or whatever you want to call it, you move about this sort of speed. Maybe a little bit faster. If you're a vampire, full speed. And if you put Mist Form on, it does take your hidden status away for a brief second, but you can still hide in Mist Form while it's cooling down. So you hit this. See, I'm hidden again, but I've got Major Expedition. So as long as you're careful with it, you can actually still sneak and hide. Now, obviously, you can see that the eye closes and it takes a little while to get hidden. But if it's nighttime, that will only last about a second. So you hit that, and you can see I'm detected. I'm finally hidden again. In the dark, that is a lot faster, and you can pretty much sneak with Mist Form on for 3 seconds out of the 4 that the buff lasts. So you can cover ground really quickly, but be careful, just don't let people spot you. Fighter's Guild, you are going to need some of this. Not necessarily the skills, but you will want the passives. We don't need any of these at all. This isn't really important for us because we don't have any skills on our bar, but you are going to want this. And this again is due to our ulti regen. You've seen how mad our ulti regen is so far. There is more to that. But of course, if you kill an undead Daedra or werewolf character or NPC, you will get 9 ultimate back. So if you kill a player who is a werewolf, you'll get 9 ulti back. If you kill a zombie, you'll get 9 ulti back. You see where I'm going with this? It builds very fast. This is a very important skill to get. And of course, in Cyrodiil, you can pick up Fighters Guild quests. So why not? Bounty quests specifically. But so get this and get this. This is very important. And I'll show you again, like I said, I'll show a demonstration on some zombies to show how fast you can generate ultimate. That'll help a lot in the sewers, by the way. You can actually use the mobs around you to build your ulti to then kill people. It's disgusting. Mage's Guild, I did say already you need Mage's Guild 10, which you will do. Get every single one of these passives. They will all benefit you in one way or another. It reduces the cost of them, increases their duration, all that kind of stuff, including stuff like this, because this will be used to try and scout people out. You want to reduce the cost. You want to improve the duration of it. Now, above all, you want to get this, which increases your Magicka and Magicka recovery by 2%. So your max magic and your recovery for having a skill on the bar. We do actually have one on the bar, so this doesn't give us 5%. This actually gives us 7, which is quite nice. And we get more recovery, like I said. Also, if you fire off a major skilled ability, including Ice Comet or Shooting Star, whichever one you've got, you'll empower your next single target direct attack. Only single target direct attack we've got is our Execute, or in fact the Ice Comet itself, or the Shooting Star. So that can empower itself as well. It's quite nice. Undaunted, you will have to do some dungeons. You will have to get some achievements in dungeons. Don't go in with PvP gear because you're going to hurt yourself in the group. Make sure you're set up for a dungeon first, but you will want to get these passives. If you take a synergy, and you probably will, especially if you're in a big brawl and there's heals going down and stuff like that, you will get resources back. 4% of your max resources, in fact. So this is very important. Take those bloody synergies. You are going to need them. Also, for each different type of armor worn, you will receive 2% increase to all of your resources. We're wearing 3 different types. We are wearing some heavy, we are wearing some medium, and we are wearing some light. So for those 3, we count up a maximum of 6% additional bonus resources. So our health, our magicka, and our stamina is all increased across the board by 6%. It's really important to your survival and your sustain and ability to do damage and all that kind of stuff. Now, Assault and support, you will need these. The longer you're in PvP, the more you will level these up, and the sooner you can unlock them and max them out. But these are also very important as well. They will increase your damage and your recovery and all that kind of stuff while you are next to, or while you are fighting at or fighting after a keep or a capture point or a mine or a farm or anything like that. So if you capture any of the resources with this particular passive, you'll have increased damage and recovery. If you are near a keep, you will have increased range. If you kill somebody, you get more ultimate. Now, this isn't maxed at the moment, but if you do max it, each enemy player that you kill will give you 20 ultimate. If they're a werewolf, you'll get an additional 9. If they're a vampire, you'll get an additional 9, because they count as undead. If you hit them with a light attack, you'll get 3 a second for 8 seconds. If you hit them with Invigorate and Drain, you will build up ultimate really, really fast, 5 a second for 3 seconds. We already have a reduction to cost for our ultimate anyway, so you can see where these bats building up happen really, really quickly. You get into the middle of a fight with a bomb and some buffs, and you try and kill them at the same time, and then bats fire off. You can get your bats back in no time, as long as you're getting kills or as long as you're getting stuck in. It's really, really, really powerful. So as soon as you've got the option to do so, get level 10 on this and buy this passive as fast as you can. Also in support, this will increase your Magicka recovery based on how many support abilities you have slotted. We don't have any, so this isn't actually that important, but if you choose to use some, then you can, but we're not using any, so don't worry. This one here is important. Increases your healing done by 10% when you're near a keep. Obviously that will go higher, so you do want to get this one, especially if you're in defense or attack situations on keeps. And above all, this one here reduces the time it takes for you to resurrect another player by 15%. This actually goes up by a lot when you max it out. Have it on many characters, but not this one specifically. Make sure you get this as soon as possible. If you're not resing people, then your side is going to die. People have to be up. You need your team to fight with you. Get them off the floor. Also, don't forget, you do get alliance points for resurrecting players. Yes, we're a high elf because we want to take full advantage of our recovery bonus here for 9%. Our max Magicka giving us more damage. We have a 10% max Magicka bonus. Now, the Breton does as well, although they do have more spell resistance, so that might be a choice that you want to make instead. But the high elf's very nice because of the recovery bonus. And also, they do get an increased amount of damage for Flame, Frost, and Shock. We are not using any other element, apart from magic, other than lightning, so shock damage. So the flame and the frost doesn't apply to this particular setup, but the shock damage does. And of course, this will contribute towards our execute power as well, because we do shock damage when we have our passive execute kicking in from the Stormcalling skill line. So this is the reason I've chosen the high elf, but you can be anything you want. If you prefer to have higher resists and the same amount of Magicka, you can go Breton. If you want to go dark elf to have the extra stamina as well, you can. It's entirely up to you, but I personally preference the high elf. Alchemy. Medicinal use is one of the most important skills in the game as far as I'm concerned, as far as passives are, and this will increase your potions duration by 30%. Normal pots, crafted pots, doesn't matter, increase it by 30%. Now, I'm going to give you an example of why this is important for this particular build. Also, there is a guide in the description of how to max this out in under 15 minutes, and you can just take all your points out of here after you've got it maxed, and then just use it for medicinal use only. However, where's a potion? I'm using a movable pot, in fact. Now this here has a 10.4 second duration, and it stops me from being knocked down, disabled, snared, stunned, all that kind of stuff. That is increased by 30%. It's supposed to be 7 seconds or so. But that's not the most useful way to use it. The most useful way to use it, of course, is other bonuses. Now, if you look here, I get a heal and health recovery, and I also get Magicka back and Magicka recovery. And as you can see there, 47.6 seconds on my mag recovery, and the cooldown is 45. So I can have 100% uptime on my mag recovery if I choose to. That passive is very strong. You don't have to even use just these potions. There's many choices in the game, but anything that has a long durated effect will last the full cooldown time, so you can keep that uptime. Really powerful. Okay, now I'm going to get to the gear, and this is going to start making even more sense. It's a lot more complicated than it looks on the surface. We are using, of course, the Vampire Lord. Now, this is something that is still quite cheap on the market because most people don't use it, but it's very strong for this particular build because we are based on being a vampire, not just having those passives so we can sneak or have recovery or mist form. We are actually utilizing those skills a lot. Now, what this does is it gives you increased max Magicka, it gives you spell damage, it gives you a crit chance, and it adds 400 spell damage to your vampire abilities, meaning our invigorating drain and our bats are stronger specifically. Also, this reduces the cost of your vampire abilities by 5%. Now that sounds like we get 5% less Magicka cost, which is correct, but it goes a little further than that. If you look at this here, Invigorate and Drain, of course, is cheap as hell. It's 1.8k. Mistform is 3.8 instead of almost 4k or not far short of it. I think it's about 3.9, nearly 4k. But above all, remember we have reduction to our ultimate cost in our Sorcerer skill lines. We also have a reduction to the ultimate cost because it's a vampire skill, which is why this is cheaper. 5% off the top of the ulti cost, as well as a 15% from our passives. So already we're reducing it and reducing it and reducing it, while our ulti gain is high. Now, if we go back to the weapons themselves, we're using 2 swords, one in Sharpened, one in Decisive. Sharpened to go through their resists, and Decisive to increase our ulti gain, which is important. It's very, very strong. Now, I put an Oblivion glyph on one, and I put a weapon and spell damage on the other. Make sure that you do light attack. Make sure that you proc this glyph. Don't just run after people spamming abilities. You want this to be active so your abilities are stronger. Your bats, your Invigorate and Drain, anything you're using, you want them to be stronger. We're using 5 pieces of Vampire Lord, specifically on the front bar. Now, on the back bar, we are using a Resto Staff for the Vampire Lord as well. Now, the trait on this is entirely up to you, but I prefer Decisive because you get a stupid amount of ulti gain back on the back bar while you're trying to recover resources and everything like that. So I preference Decisive. 40% chance to gain an extra ultimate every time you gain ultimate. So every second where you gain 3, you could gain 4. But the reason we have this on the back bar is so that we still get the 4th piece bonus while we're on the back. If I switch bars, you'll see that it says 4 pieces instead of 5, which means we still get the additional crit bonus. You don't have to use that. You can actually use a Resto Staff from anywhere if you want. It's entirely up to you, but I preference the 4 piece on the back, but it's quite cheap on the market anyway. Now, the potions or poisons that I'm using attached to this inflict minor cowardice to your target and grants you minor sorcery, so you get increased damage. It also increases the cost of their ultimates by 60% and increases your spell power by 5%. So we have increased damage and they have increased cost. Also, this drains Magicka from them and their abilities and making them cost 30% more while we get magic back. So if you heavy attack someone with this first, then switch bars and jump in, they're pretty much stuffed. Their abilities cost more for 4 seconds, you gain Magicka, you gain damage, and their ultimates can't be spammed either because they cost far, far too much, but you got to be quick. 3 seconds of Major Mending as well, remember, if we do a heavy attack. So this is your main kind of attack. You heavy first, then get in and do your damage. Preferably while Proxy Debt is already running. So get your buffs on, make sure you're ready for it, heavy attack, and get in. And then you can pressure them and give them some trouble. It's really, really, really strong. Bit of tactical play again as to who you are and aren't going to target. You don't always proc the poison, but when you do, it's really, really nice. Anyway, that's my reasoning for that. You don't have to, but that's a personal preference of mine. The 2 piece on the helmet and shoulders is actually Bloodspawn. Now, I'm using the impen on everything, so I want as much crit resistance as possible. We are bloody tanky, but we are using Bloodspawn, 1 light, 1 medium. So you can do this in any order if you want. They both give you the same resistances because the shoulders are the same as the helmet as far as resists are concerned. But I put Magicka on everything, apart from 2, which I'll get to. Crit resist on everything. And what this does is it gives us 126 stamina recovery, unless you got both, in which case it's 129. So we can CC break more often, we can dodge roll if we need to, we can sprint, or we can stealth, or whatever. Stamina recovery is really, really good. Just make sure you've stopped, because you don't recover while you're sprinting. Also, this gives us a 6% chance while we take damage, which is pretty much all the time. We're going to be taking damage, to give us 6300 resistances for physical and spell. So we get really tanky when this fires off. It lasts for 6 seconds, so it can proc straight away again, and every time it does, we get 14 ultimate. Now, taking into account that our ultimate costs us 94 anyway, that's a shit ton of ultimate to get back. Now, just to add it up again, our bats cost 5% less because of our set. Our bats cost 15% less because of our class passives. We gain 3 ulti a second from a light or a heavy attack, plus the additional 1 if Decisive fires off. We also gain 5 ultimate a second with Invigorate and Drain, which is our main pressure and damage skill. We also gain ultimate if we kill someone who's undead, Daedra, or werewolf, whether it be a mob or a player. We also gain 10 to 20 ultimate, depending on whether you've maxed it or not, per player kill. You can see that our ulti regeneration is absolutely disgusting. We are tanky as hell and we can heal like hell. Now, it gets a little more interesting, because this is why the bats cost 94 in the first place, and that is because we are actually using the dragon as well. Now, the dragon will give you mag recovery, which you need, healing received, which you will need, health, which is awesome, and reduces the cost of your ultimate by 15%, again on top of the passive from the sorcerer. So this is why our ice comet, or shooting star rather, is 148, and why our bats is only 94. Now, again, don't forget we can also build ultimate another way, because if we fire shooting star into a room and it hits lots and lots of people at once, every single person hit will give you 11 ultimate. We are an ultimate building machine, and we can spam bats all day long. It is absolutely disgusting. Of course, like I said, impen on everything. On the chest, I have gone with the tri-stat glyph, which will give us bonuses to all 3 resources, but you don't have to. You can go full Magicka or a health bonus or whatever you want. And I've gone stamina on the shoulder, but again, you can change this to Magicka if you want to kind of push those numbers a little bit higher. But generally, everything has Magicka on it. Jewelry as well, of course, make sure that that's a Vampire Lord, because you get arcane jewelry. Make sure that you have spell damage glyphs on everything to get as much damage as you possibly can. So 3 jewelry and 2 swords. Specifically, you can use a dagger or an axe or anything like that if you want, but the sword does give you more flat damage, so I would preference these. Rest are on the back of Vampire Lord, and all body pieces of the dragon. So 2 Bloodspawn, all body of the dragon, and Vampire Lord jewelry and swords. This all put together makes a lot more sense, of course, when you can actually see it working, but it's very, very, very strong. Now, what I'm going to do is going to go into Alaka Desert. I'm going to show you some zombies and see how fast you can build this ultimate up. Of course, it's different with players, but then again, maybe not so much, because a zombie will give you 9 ultimate. But an undead player, a vampire or a werewolf, who dies will give you 29 back. Okay, now this is a little tricky, because this is a bit of a grind spot for people that are trying to level way, way too fast, but I'm going to see if I can find a pool of zombies and then show you how fast you can actually generate ultimate. One of my favourite spots is actually down here, so let's... here we are. Now this is very handy when you're in the sewers as well, because you do get a lot of undead down there, you get a lot of Daedra and bits and pieces, so if you're hunting solo and you want to build your ultimate while killing people, you can deliberately get yourself in trouble. Now watch this, Ice Comet, watch my ultimate. Bats almost instantly. Bats are up. Every single thing that I kill will give me ultimate back already. Really, really ridiculous. You can actually fire both ultimates one after the other. Let's see if I can get these attention as well. I'm already on 50 ultimate. I'm not even trying. Proxy debt is on. This is going to hurt. Bats, bats, bats. Halfway through already. It's ridiculous. Really, really fast ulti generation. Anyway, let's get into the champion points. Start off in here. 56 into Ironclad. Now, you can go to about 72 in here if you want a 23% reduction, but it's quite high in diminished returns. I do usually favour about 72 in here, but 56 is absolutely fine, especially based on how we've spread our points for resists on this particular setup. So this will prevent you from taking additional damage from direct damage attacks, which is light attacks, heavy attacks, fireballs, crystal shards, all that shininess that is single target here, even an ice comet. Make sure that you get some points into here, because you can be hit with a lot of direct damage. Most people out there are running burst builds that are based on single target, so you do need that resistance towards that. Also 48 points into crit resistance, so we will be crit quite a lot, and you can mitigate a lot of damage incoming, especially from Nightblades and such as well, if you have a lot of critical resistance. We're actually sitting at about 3,000 almost, so we have really, really good resists. Also, 37 points into Hardy, 37 into Elemental Defender. This will give us a base reduction to incoming damage of these damage types, alongside dot reduction as well. Remember, you can block the initial hit from a dot now, but you can't block the dot itself. It will still tick over and kill you, so you want a reduction to that damage over time effect, and this will stack with these damage types as well. Expert Defender, you want to make sure that you reduce the damage from incoming light and heavy attacks, which does also stack with this, and with this, and with any damage types as well. It does work hand in hand with all the rest of them, so this is very, very important to get. And also quick recovery as well to increase our healing received. You will get debuffed a lot. You do want the bonus to healing received, especially since we're healing a lot of our own skills. And of course, don't forget, if you haven't got this and you just get one or the other, if you're low CPs, make sure you've got 10 in this tree regardless, so that you get field physician. You get alliance points for resing people. You get a faster res speed in PvP as well, depending on where you are and what passives you've got. And also, the less damage you take while resin, the better, and this passive promotes that. It's really, really strong. So while you're resin people, you take 15% less damage. I've been using this passive on my videos Ever since I started YouTube, every single video has got this in, and this one's no different. It's a very, very strong passive to have. I know a couple of people are jumping on board this now and trying to make out that it's their own idea. It's been there forever. Always, always utilize this passive. 40 points into a Warlord. This will reduce the cost of break free. You will get stunned a lot. You are going to need this. 16% reduction there. 75 points into Tenacity, so we get 14% increased resources back on our heavy attacks. Remember, we are using a resto staff on the back bar. We get 30% increase to our return. We also get a 25% increase to our return because we're using 5 pieces of heavy, and we also get an increased return with this passive. So you can see how easy it is to get resources back with just a simple heavy attack on a resto staff. Not only on its own, but of course if you add a potion to that as well, it's disgusting. You can get your stuff back real quick. Also, increase our mag recovery by 14%. This is very important as well because we do want to make sure that we can sustain somewhat during our kind of pressure moments, especially if we're not heavy attacking at the time. Now, if you get stunned, you break it, you have a CC immunity. If you get clawed or immobilized, then you can dodge roll out of it and then you can get clawed again. So this helps. We are going to be dodge rolling a lot. Failing that, don't forget, you can just misform straight out of it. 2 points into Shadow Ward, making sure that we make use of our last 2 points so we do get a 1% reduction to block cost. We are going to need to block occasionally. This will help you. I could put them somewhere else, but they won't be any useful for these or anything like that because they won't actually hit a flat percentage. They won't go to 17% here. It won't go to 15% here. It'll be useless. So 1% of something's better than 0% of nothing. 19 points into Blessed, increasing our healing done by 5%. We have a lot of heals anyway, but we want to boost that, especially in PvP, because we are going to get debuffed by all manner of different poisons and debuffs and stuff like that. So boost this a little bit. 75 points, giving us 14% increase to our Flame, Frost, Shock, and Magic damage. We are doing Magic damage mostly, apart from our Executes, which is Shock. So we do want to improve that. Don't go any more points into here, though, because if you go another 25 points, you'll only get 1%. You want to use those points elsewhere. 45 points into Spell Erosion. Now, of course, there are some tanky people out there. We're using a sharpened weapon. It improves our penetration. We are using this, which improves our spell penetration, so we ignore a certain amount of resistances. I go quite heavy into this in PvP. I know it doesn't affect shields, but it does affect people's direct health bars once those shields are off. So this is very, very useful. You want to get through that nasty chunkiness of some of the players to make sure that you're actually dealing a decent amount of damage. So I make sure that I put a lot of points into here. 13 points into Shatter and Blows, meaning that if you do hit someone who is using a damage shield, you do an additional amount of damage towards that shield, so you can take it off them quicker. Master at Arms, this will improve your direct damage attacks. Now, Proxy Det and Ice Comet, or Shooting Star rather, will benefit from this, so it's quite nice. Also, don't forget your light and heavy attacks from your 2 swords. If you ever use them, you will be light attacking to get the glyphs on. You will be heavy attacking occasionally for sustain. This will improve the damage of those as well in those situations. It's very, very nice indeed. Also 81 points into Thermitage. I usually go 75 points into here to increase the dot damage, but of course the next jump point is 81, and above all Exploiter, which is really, really awesome. I use it on pretty much all my builds ever since the original Easy Sorc. If a target is off balance, and they will be a lot in PvP, especially with all the CC stuff and a few Wall of Elements now being thrown into the mix because the AoE cap removal has been completely altered, and the way that ground AoEs affect people because they can't be blocked. You're going to see a lot of that. You're going to see a lot of people going off balance. Take advantage of this as soon as possible. So if you see someone wobbling, hit them with a Invigorating Drain and kill them. But the 81 points instead of 75 means that instead of 23 and a bit, we actually have 24%. You don't have to go that high if you don't want. You can just go flat 75 and points elsewhere, but you will lose 1% to your damage overall. Okie dokie. So hopefully that helped. Don't forget, this is a very unique setup. This is made purposely for the vampire skills. So if you want to shout crystal shards and wall of elements and liquid light and all this boring stuff that has nothing to do with the build, then you clearly are in the wrong place. However, if you like this kind of setup and want to take advantage of it, I would highly recommend it because it is broken. In a good way, not a bad way. Don't nerf it. There are a few people that have been using this recently since the original update, and some of the Patreon supporters as well who have kind of had early access to this and already know what to do with it, that are hitting some stupid PvP runs. There has been top score battleground runners, there's been emperors and all sorts. It's very, very strong indeed if you can get used to the playstyle. It's very tricky to start with, but it's really, really strong nonetheless. Just remember, of course, keep your buffs up, both of these specifically if you can. Get out of trouble if you have to with this for distance or in, or get out of CC with either Mist Form, which will protect you, or your breaks. And above all, keep Proxy Det on, pressure your target with Invigorating Drain, and spam those bats. The more targets you jump into, the more damage you will do, and the more survivability you have as well because of the heals you get from the bats. It's very, very, very strong. Anyway, Anyway, like I said, hopefully that helped. Hopefully that wasn't too boring. And of course, if you do have any questions, please put them in the comment section below. Don't shout secondhand meta reciting information, because I already know what's out there. And that is the whole point of content creating. Creating something that people can use, creating something new, not duplicating what's already out there. Anyway, if you're not subscribing, please do hit that button. It is free. And furthermore, if you want to help support the channel outside of YouTube, there are some links in the description for Patreon, for Facebook, Twitter, and of course the website XynodeGaming.com, where of course, remember, all the guides are as well. Once again, thank you all very, very much for watching. I hugely appreciate the support, and I will see you again in the next video. Bye bye.